All right, what's up everyone? Greg here from Investing in Gold, and today we're going to be talking about diversifying your financial portfolio with gold and why you may want to do so. Now, it's a little rainy out today, but I still like to be near the outdoors, so if you hear some birds chirping playing in the rain, don't mind them. Now, before I jump in, I always like to show some of my favorite pieces of gold and silver when I do my videos, and I want to show you my favorite gold piece, which is actually a 1 ounce bar. It's a 007 piece. One of my friends actually sent this to me, and on the back it says "No time to die." So if you're a 007 fan like me, you're well aware of that saying there. And also, so I got that one maybe a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. This one here I actually have a ton of, and I got these back in like 2010. These are also 1 ounce, just kind of, standard gold 1 ounce gold bars here. Here's actually one that fell out of its casing. I figured I'd show you this one as well. That's the back, have it upside down. And then that's the front right here. So that's what a 1 ounce gold bar looks like out of its case. And then also I want to compare it to a silver bar just so you see, right? So this is an A-Mark 10 ounce silver bar. Compared to the gold bar, you can see it's much bigger. What's funny is, we're mid 2023 right now. This small 1 ounce bar is worth about $2,000. This one, which is 10 ounce, 10 times the size, is about 10% of this value, right? So this is about $250, whereas this is about $2,000, and of course estimating. So one of the things I like about gold is it's actually a lot easier to carry and store and all that because it's just so much more value for the size that it is. So before I get in, I always like to point out, just because I'm an advocate of precious metals and I own investing in gold, doesn't mean that I'm one of those people that's like, put as much money as you can into precious metals. I actually think that's not a good idea. And I'm not a financial advisor. I can't give you financial advice. I can just tell you my opinion on things, and my opinion is to diversify, and I think gold should be part of that diversification. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which we're about to hop in now. But anyone that tells you, like, just throw as much money as you can into precious metals, or anything for that matter, be very careful of that, because that can get you in a lot of trouble. Yes, it can make you a lot of money at a point, but it can also lose you a lot of money at one point. And that's why it's a good reason to diversify, so you can kind of be stable across the board, and any major fluctuations you're going to kind of bounce right through. So let's get into reason number one that I like to have gold in my portfolio, and that's that it's a hedge against inflation. Now, I think most of you watching this video, you're well aware that gold has historically been viewed as a great hedge against inflation. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest talking points you see, like when you see an ad or anything for precious metals. They always point out inflation, but it is a good hedge against inflation. And when the cost of living increases, the price of gold tends to rise as well. And that's going to protect the purchasing power of the investor if you're someone who invests in precious metals. So that's one of the reasons that I like gold. I figured I'd start out with the most obvious reason, because you've probably all heard that before. Now, reason number two is because of the store of value, right? So gold has been a store of value for thousands of years due to its durability, its rarity, and of course, its universal acceptance. And this goes way back, right? Gold was used thousands of years ago in the ancient civilization. I mean, the Egyptians actually used to bury their pharaoh with gold because they believed it was like the flesh of the gods. And then you go to the Roman civilization, they used to, much like we do today, they used to use gold as like a status symbol, right? Where they would make jewelry out of it, and it's like the more gold you had, the more of a status symbol you were. Now, today, of course, diamonds are in play, and, of course, silver and diamonds are kind of what's in right now, I think. I'm not big on the trends with fashion. But the point is, we go through these trends where sometimes gold is like this big status symbol, and diamonds weren't around as much back then. Gold was, and gold was like the big status symbol. Now we go through the phases, but gold is still a big status symbol. If you wear this really big gold chain, even if it's not in for a trend, it's still seen as like a status symbol. Now, I'm not someone that wears jewelry. I'm not into that, but the point is, the majority of society sees that as a status symbol, and it was used way back in the day for that, by the Romans, and of course, the Egyptians look at it a certain way. So it's been used for thousands of years for a store of value in some type of way or another. Now, it's also a protection against currency fluctuations. And one of the most recent ones you may remember is the 2008 financial crisis. And during this time in 2008, the price of gold went from, I believe it was $800 when the 2008 crisis first started. And by 2011, the price of gold was up to $1,900, right? So more than 2 times in that 3-year period. And that's what tends to happen when it comes to gold. When we have these times of major currency fluctuations, precious metals typically go up a lot. And that's why I don't like to have all my money in, let's say, stocks, because people in the stock market in 2008 got absolutely crushed. I mean, there's people who lost 50% of their retirement savings because they had all their money in stocks, whereas people who were a little heavier with precious metals actually did extremely well. Now, with that said, again, you don't just want to throw a bunch of money in precious metals because of that, because if we don't have something like the 2008 crisis happen, then you're missing out on other investment opportunities. And that's why I like to really diversify somewhat equally across the board. And again, with precious metals, I like to stay between 10 and 20% for me personally. What you do just depends on your situation, how much money you have, where you think the markets are going, and how educated you are on, financial topics. So just be aware of that. Another example of currency fluctuations is the 1970s oils crisis and inflation, right? So during this time, the price of gold went from, I think it was $35 an ounce in around 1970 to about $850 in 1980. So a huge fluctuation there, right? A little further time period, about 10 years. But again, major currency fluctuation, the price of gold went way up. And of course, if you were one of those people who invested in gold in 1970 range and you held it to about 1980, you more than 20 times your money, right? So gold is a great protection against currency fluctuations. So another great reason is liquidity, right? Gold is standardized as far as pricing goes worldwide. So anywhere you go, it's going to have the same price and it can be sold very easily. And that's what's awesome about gold. When it comes to paper currency, you see major changes across different markets. When it comes to gold, it's standardized across the whole world. So along with protecting against currency fluctuations, it also protects very well against uncertain economic times. And a lot of really smart financial people believe that we're in some weary times right now when it comes to economics, right? It wouldn't be surprising if our markets took a total crap pretty soon, right? Whether it's within the next few weeks or few months or few years, a lot of very smart people believe we're in for some hard economic times coming up. And gold specifically does very well in those times. And that's another reason I like to have gold in there mixed in my portfolio. It's that diversification. Some examples of recent events are COVID-19, which I'm sure all of us remember that because that was only a few years ago. And then, of course, another one that comes to mind is the 2001 terrorist attacks, right? That was very uncertain times because people were scared. And when those times happen, people like to have something that's a store of value, something that's physical, like gold. So then you got supply and demand dynamics, right? I mean, gold mining is complex, it's expensive, and it's time consuming. Unlike the dollar, we can't just print gold out of thin air like that, right? It's time consuming, it's expensive, it takes a long time. I mean, with the process, you got the exploration phase, right? Which can take years. I mean, they have to actually explore and find places where there's gold. And then when they get there, they got to go through the whole development phase, right? Once the potential site's located, they got to build roads. They got to do the processing facilities. They got to do the waste disposal systems. I mean, it's not a simple process to do all this stuff. And then after that, you got all the extraction stuff. You got to, it's labor intensive. It's high environmental impact. And then you got the processing, the reclamation. So people think that gold, when you find it, it can just be scooped up and thrown to the side and we found gold. No, this is a major process when it comes to mining gold. So that's what I like about it. It has something behind it, right? Unlike the dollar, number one, there's nothing behind it, but number two, it can happen like that. And I've come to learn in my life that things that can happen like that typically aren't good, right? And they typically don't end well. So that's what scares me about the dollar is at the rate we're going, at the rate we're just printing money and just churning the printing presses and going more and more in debt with something that's really not backed by anything, that scares me. And that's why I don't like to have all my money in something like that, right? So just one of the major reasons that I'm a big gold advocate in precious metal. So another thing I really like is that there's no credit risk, right? There's no counterparty risk involved. So, when you buy something like a bond, well, there's a risk that the issuer might not be able to pay back the principal or interest. And that's just the fact of the matter. And even though it's a small risk, even a deposit into the bank, I mean, the bank could fail and you could lose your deposit. Now, very small risk of that happen, but that doesn't happen with gold. There's just no counterparty risk there at all. And that's another thing that kind of makes me comfortable with having a little bit of gold in my financial portfolio. Now, a huge one is there is some major tax benefits. Now, I don't want to go too deep into this because the tax benefits are going to vary depending on what location you're in. But I mean, anything from capital gains to tax-free investments can be some of the major tax benefits that you can receive depending on, again, where you're located. And it's just so different based on different locations that I'm not going to go deep into that. And lastly, just to, kind of finish this off, and this kind of ties into a little bit what I was talking about earlier with uncertain economic times. When the stock market is not doing well, typically precious metals are going to do well, right? So as the stock market's going down, our precious metals are going up. That helps balance things, right? That is the point of diversification. If you are someone who has all your money in stocks and the stock market's going down for many years over and over, that can cause a lot of stress and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of panic. And I know many people where stocks go down, they panic, they sell at a low point, then all of a sudden they start going up, then they buy again when it's way up. When you're diversified, you don't have that panic. It enables you to not make, I guess, dumb moves, you could say, when it comes to being panicky. Like you're losing money. Oh, I gotta sell before I lose too much more. And then all of a sudden the markets go back up and you really miss out, right? So when you diversify, even if the stock markets are going down, well, typically precious metals are going up, and that's going to help diversify everything. And that's why I like to go, again, diversification across the board. Hopefully that helps you understand why having precious metals in your portfolio can be a great diversification. I mean, I remember back in 2008, there's a chart, and I brought this up in another video, but I wish I had it. It showed investors, like your average investor from 2008, right? And it was like someone who invested $300,000. If they were 100% in stocks, their investment at the lowest point would have been worth about $150,000. I think it was like $153,000. So basically they would have lost about half their investments. Someone who invested 70% in the stocks and then 30% in precious metals at that lowest point in the stocks, their portfolio would have been worth about $425,000, right? So they actually gained money. So someone who's in stocks 100% lost about half their money. Someone who has 30% precious metals actually would have made money. They would have made a good bit there, right? $125,000 off 300. That's a pretty big chunk of change there that you made. While most people are suffering, you actually did pretty well. Now, 30% is a little high for me. Again, I usually won't go over 20%, but there's plenty of people who do. And there's people actually who have 50% or more in precious metals. For that person in 2008, who invested $300,000, where 50% was stocks and 50% was precious metals, by the lowest point of the stock market, their investment would have been worth over $600,000. So while most people were losing money, this person doubled their investment. It's just one of the powers of precious metals is they can really help diversify. When other assets are going down, they're typically going up. And that's just a great reason to have gold. So hopefully this helps you get a better idea of why this could be good to add to your financial portfolio and just help you diversify. For me, it's all about stress management, right? I don't want all my money in something that's backed by the dollar and something that's going to go all the same way if the markets are going down, right? If all my money is in something, even if it's like CDs and, whatever, real estate, if most of it's in, stocks, real estate, that type of stuff, and the markets are going down, well, guess what? All my investments are going down. With precious metals in the mix, between 10 to 20% of my portfolio, well, then I have something to even it out. Even if I do lose a little bit, I'm not going to lose a whole lot, and that helps me sleep better at night because I'm diversified. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.